Please don't take my dog. She's my only family. I'm not here to take her. Arab millionaire found a little girl and her dog sleeping on trash during Ramadan. The truth broke his heart. The call to Maghrib prayer echoed across Dubai's glittering skyline that evening during the holy month of Ramadan. From his corner office on the 45th floor, Rashid Al-Mansouri looked out at the city he'd helped build, a forest of steel and glass monuments to ambition and wealth. But the view that once filled him with pride now left him feeling hollow. He'd just signed a deal worth 30 million dirhams. His company, Al-Mansouri Holdings, had become one of the most successful real estate empires in the Emirates. Yet, as he prepared to leave for the iftar dinner at the Burj Al Arab, where Dubai's elite would gather to break their fast, Rashid felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, just the familiar weight of emptiness that had settled in his chest 2 years ago when his daughter Layla died in a car accident. She was only 9 years old, his precious girl, who loved to paint and laugh and tell him stories about the stray cats she fed near their villa, gone in an instant. And with her, his wife Amira's spirit had broken too. She'd moved back to Cairo to live with her family, unable to bear the memories that haunted every corner of their home. The divorce papers came 6 months later. Now, Rashid lived alone in a mansion that echoed with silence, surrounded by servants who spoke only when spoken to, and business associates who wanted only his money or his connections. "Mr. Al-Mansouri, your car's ready," his assistant said through the intercom. Rashid adjusted his pristine white kandura and gutra, checking his reflection in the glass. He looked like success. He looked like everything he'd ever wanted to become, but the man staring back at him felt like a stranger. Before we continue, don't forget to hit like, repost, or share, and subscribe. And I'm really curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Back to the story. The Mercedes glided through Dubai's streets, past the illuminated Burj Khalifa and the dancing fountains. But as they turned down a service road behind the sprawling Dubai Mall, something made Rashid sit forward. "Slow down, Ahmed," he told his driver. "Sir, just slow down." In the harsh fluorescent light behind a row of restaurants near the commercial dumpsters where delivery trucks unloaded, he saw her. A little girl, no more than 8 years old, curled up on a flattened cardboard box next to a pile of trash bags. She was wearing a faded pink dress that was too thin for the cool desert night, and clutched against her chest was a small, scraggly white dog, trembling in the evening air. They were both asleep, or maybe just too exhausted to move. The girl's arms were wrapped around the dog like she was protecting the most precious thing in the world. And perhaps she was. Rashid's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he saw Layla. His Layla, who had begged him for a puppy every birthday. But he'd always been too busy, always said maybe next year, always promised later. And then there was no more later. "Stop the car," he said, his voice rough. "Sir, we're already late for—" "Stop the car now." Ahmed pulled over, and Rashid stepped out into the warm evening air, the smell of garbage mixed with spices from the nearby restaurants. He walked slowly toward the girl, his handmade leather shoes crunching on bits of broken glass and debris. As he approached, the dog's head shot up. It was a small, mixed-breed thing, probably a street dog, with matted white fur and one ear that stood up while the other flopped down. It growled softly, a pitiful warning sound that said it would defend its girl with everything it had. The growl woke the child. Her eyes snapped open, wide and terrified, dark brown eyes that held too much fear for someone so young. She pulled the dog closer and pressed herself back against the wall. "Please," she whispered in Arabic, her voice hoarse. "Please don't take my dog. She's my only family." The words hit Rashid like a physical blow. He knelt down slowly, his expensive kandura touching the dirty ground, and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to take her," he said softly. "I'm here to help." The girl stared at him with those enormous eyes, clearly not believing him. She'd probably heard promises before from people who didn't keep them. "What's your name?" Rashid asked gently. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper, "Yasmin." "That's a beautiful name." "It means jasmine, like the flower." He smiled, trying to look unthreatening. What's your dog's name? Noor, she said, still clutching the animal. It means light. And she is your light, isn't she? Yasmin nodded, a tiny movement. A single tear rolled down her dirty cheek. Yasmin, when did you last eat? She looked away. I don't remember. Maybe yesterday. A man from the restaurant gave me some bread before they threw it away. Rashid's heart clenched. It was Ramadan. While he and Dubai's wealthy broke their fast with lavish feasts, this child was surviving on discarded bread. I have food in my car, he said, and water. For you and Noor. Will you come with me? Just to eat. I promise I won't separate you. You promise? Her voice was so small, so fragile. I promise on my daughter's memory, Rashid said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Something in his tone must have reached her, because Yasmin slowly, hesitantly got to her feet. She swayed, dizzy from hunger or exhaustion, or both. Rashid reached out to steady her, and she flinched but didn't pull away. Noor, still in her arms, stopped growling but watched him with suspicious dark eyes. He guided them to the car, where Ahmed's eyes widened in shock at the sight of his immaculate boss helping a dirty street child and her dog into the luxury vehicle. Ahmed, forget the iftar dinner, Rashid said. We're going home. But sir, Sheikh Mohammed will be there, and the investors. I said we're going home. In the back seat, Rashid pulled out the dates and water he always carried for breaking fast. He handed them to Yasmin, who stared at them like they might disappear. Go ahead, he encouraged. The Maghrib prayer was called. You can break your fast. I wasn't fasting, she admitted, shame coloring her cheeks. I'm not old enough yet. And even if I was... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. How could she fast when she was already starving? Then just eat. You need strength. She ate the dates slowly, savoring each bite, and gave small pieces to Noor, who gulped them down gratefully. Then she drank the water, trying not to gulp it too fast, but Rashid could see her desperation. As they drove through the illuminated streets toward his villa in Emirates Hills, Yasmin pressed her face to the window, staring at the lights and the luxury cars and the beautiful people breaking their fast in outdoor restaurants. I used to live in a real house, she said quietly. Before. Before what? Rashid asked gently. She turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw a depth of loss that no child should know. Before Baba died, before Mama got sick, before everything fell apart. The story came out slowly, in fragments as they drove. Yasmin's father had been a construction worker from Pakistan, her mother a housemaid from the Philippines. They'd met in Dubai, fallen in love, and made a life together despite their struggles. They had a small apartment in Dara, nothing fancy, but it was home. Then, her father fell from scaffolding on a construction site. The company claimed he wasn't following safety procedures. There was no insurance, no compensation, just a body to send back to Pakistan for burial. Her mother tried to keep going, working 2 housekeeping jobs, but the grief and the stress broke her health. She got sick, really sick. Yasmin didn't know the exact illness, but she knew her mother kept getting thinner and weaker until one day she collapsed while cleaning a house in Jumeirah. The hospital tried to help, Yasmin said, her voice flat, emotionless. But Mama didn't have good insurance. They did what they could, but she died 3 weeks ago. And you've been on the streets since then? She nodded. The landlord threw out all our things when Mama couldn't pay rent. I grabbed what I could, but I had nowhere to go. The shelter said they were full, and they said I couldn't bring Noor. But Noor was Baba's gift to me on my 6th birthday. I can't leave her. I won't. She said it with such fierce determination that Rashid felt his eyes burn with tears he hadn't shed since Layla's funeral. You won't have to, he said firmly. They arrived at his villa, a sprawling modern palace with pristine white walls and perfectly manicured gardens. The gates opened automatically, and they pulled into the curved driveway. Yasmin stared at the mansion with wide eyes. You live here? All alone? Yes, Rashid admitted. All alone. That must be very lonely. Her simple observation cut straight through all his defenses. This homeless child who had nothing could see what he'd been denying for 2 years. Yes, he was desperately, crushingly lonely. Inside, his housekeeper, Fatima, an older woman who'd been with the family for years, gasped when she saw Yasmin and the dog. Ya Allah, sir, who is this? This is Yasmin and Noor. They'll be staying with us. Please prepare the guest room next to mine and draw a warm bath, and bring food, whatever we have for iftar. But sir. Please, Fatima. His voice was softer now. Please help them. Fatima's eyes, sharp and knowing, took in the little girl's condition and the fierce way she held her dog. Her expression softened. Of course, sir. Come, Habibti, let's get you cleaned up. Noor comes with me, Yasmin said immediately. Of course she does, Fatima agreed. We'll give her a bath, too. Look at that poor thing. She needs one as much as you do. While Fatima took Yasmin upstairs, Rashid stood in his grand foyer, suddenly seeing his home through new eyes. The marble floors, the crystal chandelier, the artwork that cost more than most people earned in a year. What did any of it matter? He walked to his study and opened his laptop, then stopped. Instead, he went to the kitchen, where his chef was preparing the iftar meal. The elaborate spread of lamb, rice, salads, soups, and desserts could feed 20 people easily. Hamid, we have a young guest. Please make sure there are simple things a child would like. Maybe some chicken, plain rice, yogurt. Of course, Mr. Al-Mansouri. An hour later, when Yasmin came downstairs, she was transformed. Dressed in one of Layla's old dresses that Rashid had never been able to throw away, her hair cleaned and combed, her face scrubbed, she looked like a different child, still too thin, still with shadows under her eyes, but no longer a street waif. Noor, too, had been bathed and brushed, though she still looked like a scraggly little street dog. She trotted at Yasmin's heels, unwilling to leave her girl's side even for a moment. They ate together at the long dining table, though Rashid had them sit at one end so it felt less cavernous. Yasmin ate slowly, carefully, like she was afraid the food might be taken away. She kept slipping pieces to Noor under the table. It's okay, Rashid said. She can eat from the table. We'll get her proper dog food tomorrow, but for tonight, she can share. Yasmin looked at him with such gratitude that he had to look away. After dinner, he showed her to her room. It was next to what had been Layla's room, which he'd kept exactly as she'd left it. Yasmin looked around at the comfortable bed, the soft carpet, the curtains, the private bathroom, like she'd stepped into a dream. Is this really for me? Yes, you and Noor. For how long? The question stabbed at him. She was already preparing for this to end, already bracing for the next abandonment. We'll figure that out, he said. But for now, you're safe here, both of you. That night, Rashid couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the little girl sleeping in the room down the hall. A girl whose parents had worked themselves to death, trying to give her a better life in this city of gold, a city that had chewed them up and spit them out. And his company, Al-Mansouri Holdings. How many of the towers his company built had been constructed by workers like Yasmin's father? How many of the villas his company managed were cleaned by workers like her mother? What had he paid them? Had he ever even thought about it? He got up and went to his study, pulling up files on his computer. Construction contracts, service agreements. The numbers were all there, clean and legal, but cold. So cold. He spent hours going through records, following chains of subcontractors and employment agencies. And then he found it. A name he recognized, Pakistan Construction Solutions. They'd been one of his subcontractors for a project in Business Bay 2 years ago. And there, in the worker records that had been submitted for visa purposes, he found him. Karim Hassan, Yasmin's father. The man had worked on a building Rashid's company owned for a subcontractor Rashid's company had hired. The accident that killed him had happened on that site. Rashid's hands trembled as he read the accident report. Inadequate safety equipment, pressure to work faster, shortcuts taken to meet deadlines. And when Karim fell, the subcontractor had claimed he was at fault, that he wasn't following procedures. They'd paid nothing to his family. The case had been buried in paperwork, and Rashid had signed off on all of it, not personally reading every detail, of course, but his signature was on the contracts. His company had benefited from the work that killed Yasmin's father. He sat back in his chair, feeling physically sick. His success, his wealth, his towers of steel and glass, They were built on the backs of people like Karim Hassan, people who died and whose families were discarded like trash, literally like trash. He'd found Karim's daughter sleeping on garbage. Tears rolled down his cheeks, the first he'd shed since Layla's funeral. But these weren't tears of grief for himself. These were tears of shame. As the Fajr prayer call echoed across the city at dawn, Rashid was still in his study, but now he was making calls, sending emails, setting things in motion. He couldn't bring back Yasmin's parents, but he could make sure their story meant something. When Yasmin woke late that morning, she found Rashid in the kitchen, attempting to make breakfast. He was burning, pancakes filling the kitchen with smoke when she and Noor appeared in the doorway. "You're terrible at this," she said, and there was the faintest hint of a smile on her face. "My wife used to say the same thing," Rashid admitted, scraping blackened batter off the pan. "My daughter, too." "You have a daughter?" His hand stilled. "I did. Her name was Layla. She died 2 years ago." "Oh." Yasmin was quiet for a moment. Then she walked over and took his hand with her small one. "I'm sorry. That must hurt very much." Her simple empathy, after everything she'd been through, nearly broke him. "Yes," he managed. "It hurts very much." "Maybe," she said hesitantly. "Maybe that's why we found each other. So you wouldn't be so alone. And so I wouldn't be either." Rashid knelt down to her level, looking into those serious brown eyes. "Yasmin, I need to tell you something. I found out last night your father worked for my company, on one of my buildings, and when he died, my company didn't help your family. We should have. We should have made sure you and your mother were taken care of, but we didn't. And I am so sorry." He expected her to be angry, to pull away, to hate him, but instead, she squeezed his hand tighter. "Baba always said accidents happen," she said softly. "He said that's part of life. But he also said good people try to make things right when they can." "I want to make things right," Rashid said, his voice thick with emotion, "if you'll let me." She nodded. Then, hesitantly, she leaned forward and hugged him. Just a brief, uncertain child's hug. But it was enough to crack open the shell around Rashid's heart that had been sealed since Layla died. Noor, not wanting to be left out, jumped up and put her paws on Rashid's knee, her tail wagging hopefully. He laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in 2 years. A real, genuine laugh that seemed to surprise him as much as it did Yasmin. Okay, he said, patting the dog's scraggly head. "You're part of this too." That afternoon, Rashid made some calls. By evening, his lawyer arrived with papers. "Are you sure about this, sir?" the lawyer asked. "Adoption as a single man, especially of a child from a different background, it will be complicated." "Then make it uncomplicated," Rashid said. "Do whatever needs to be done. This child is not going back to the streets. She's staying here." It took months. There were investigations, home studies, meetings with social workers, but Rashid had resources and determination, and more importantly, he had Yasmin. No one who saw them together could doubt that this man and this little girl needed each other. During those months, Rashid transformed more than just his home. He started investigating all his company's labor practices. He established proper safety protocols, ensured workers had real insurance, created a fund for workers' families affected by accidents or illness. He couldn't change the past, but he could change the future. He also started a foundation in Layla's and Karim's names. It provided housing support for struggling families, especially those with children. And it included a pet adoption program because Noor had taught him that sometimes a dog was the only thing standing between a child and complete despair. The day the adoption was finalized, Rashid stood in the courtroom with Yasmin beside him, now wearing a beautiful dress but still the same fierce little girl who wouldn't let go of her dog. When the judge declared her legally his daughter, Yasmin threw her arms around his waist. "Baba," she whispered, trying out the word. And Rashid, a man who thought his heart had died with his first daughter, felt it come alive again. "Yes, Habibti," he whispered back. "I'm your Baba now." That evening, they went to the animal shelter he'd been helping fund. Noor trotted proudly on her new leash, wearing a collar that actually fit. They walked through the kennels, past dogs of all sizes barking and wagging their tails. "Do you think Yasmin asked hesitantly. Do you think Noor would like a friend? Rashid smiled. I think Noor would love a friend. What do you think? They left with a large, gentle golden retriever that Yasmin named Layla. Because, she explained, your Layla loved animals, and I think she would have loved this dog, and I think she would have loved me too. Rashid had to turn away to hide his tears. She would have loved you so much, he managed. Years passed. Yasmin grew from a scared 8-year-old into a confident teenager, then a young woman. She studied business and social work, determined to help families like hers. Rashid watched with pride as she became someone who would change the world, not through wealth, but through compassion. The villa was never silent anymore. It was filled with laughter, with friends, with 2 dogs barking, with life. Rashid never remarried, but he was never alone. He had his daughter. He had purpose. He had love. When people asked him about his philanthropic work, about why one of Dubai's most successful businessmen spent so much time and money on workers' rights and homeless families, he always told them the same story. I found a little girl and her dog sleeping on trash during Ramadan, he would say, while I was on my way to a lavish dinner, dressed in my finest clothes, thinking I was successful. But that child, who had nothing, taught me what real success means. She taught me that wealth means nothing if your heart is empty. That a home means nothing if it's just walls and silence. That life means nothing if you're not sharing it with someone you love. He would pause, his eyes growing distant with memory. My daughter Layla died, and I thought my life was over. But another little girl, sleeping on garbage, brought me back to life. She didn't need my money. She needed a father, and I needed a daughter. God works in mysterious ways. He took one Layla from me, and then he led me to Yasmin, who brought Layla back into my heart. The story of the millionaire and the girl sleeping on trash spread throughout the Emirates and beyond. It was shared on social media, told in mosques, discussed in boardrooms. Some people were inspired to change their business practices. Some started volunteering at shelters. Some simply thought twice before looking away from the homeless. But the most important change was the one that happened in a mansion in Emirates Hills, where a broken man found a broken child. And together, with a scraggly white dog named Light, they learned that family isn't about blood or wealth or status. It's about choosing to love when love seems impossible. It's about finding each other when you're both lost. It's about opening your heart even when you think it's broken beyond repair. Because sometimes the richest man in the city is the one who learns that the most valuable treasure isn't in his bank account. It's sleeping in the room down the hall, safe and loved, dreaming dreams that are finally sweet instead of filled with fear. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment of choosing to see, really see, the person everyone else walks past. One moment of choosing to stop when everyone else drives by. One moment of choosing to say, I'm not here to take what you love, I'm here to help. This story touched millions of hearts across the world. If it touched yours, let us know with a like, comment your favorite animal, and subscribe or follow for more amazing stories like this. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that compassion can change everything and that it's never too late to open your heart to love again.